The frontside flip is one of the most difficult tricks in fingerboarding. To clear up any confusion, a frontside flip is when the board and your fingers do a 180 rotation towards you, while the board also does a barrel roll towards you. In other words, a frontside flip is a combination of a front 180 and a kick flip. With that being said, two tricks that really help with learning this trick are frontside 180s and kick flips, so if you haven't already, check out my front 180 and kick flip tutorials so you can master those first. But even if you can't do either of those tricks, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know in this video to learn how to frontside flip. Step number 1. Where to put your fingers. First, you want to place your index finger in the middle of the board and your middle finger on the tail of the board. Some people find it easier to have their middle finger in the middle of the tail, but for me personally, I find it's easier to have your middle finger on the edge of the tail that's farthest away from you. Step number 2. Popping the board. The frontside flip is a lot different than doing a kick flip because normally you want to flick your index finger diagonally towards the nose and off the side of the board. But with a frontside flip, I like to think of it as if I'm flicking diagonally backwards towards the tail and off the side of the board. The board naturally wants to rotate backside when we do a kick flip, so it can be really awkward to try to do a front 180 and a kick flip at the same time. That's why your index finger is so important with this trick, because we can pop the board and get it to spin 90 degrees and then pull our index finger back to complete the 180 and flip the board like a kick flip. Because we're flicking our index finger backwards, I find it helps to have your index finger closer to the nose of the board rather than having it directly in the middle of the board like we do for most flip tricks. The finger positioning is also super important for this trick because having our middle finger on the edge of the board that's furthest away from us is going to make the board want to flip like a heel flip when we pop. And this makes it easier for our index finger to make contact with the board and make it flip like a kick flip. And while it is important to get a good pop with this trick so we can get the board in the air, our index finger is doing majority of the work in this trick, and pulling backwards towards the tail not only helps flip the board like a kick flip, but it's also the key to getting the board to spin the last 90 degrees of the front 180. It's also important to not think so much about scooping the tail against the ground to get it to spin, and instead focus on popping the tail against the ground to get it into the air. I like to think of it as if I'm doing a simple front 180 rather than scraping the tail against the ground to get it to start spinning. Another thing that can help with flipping the board is if you're finding the board isn't flipping enough, try putting your index finger on the edge of the board that's closest to you. This is going to make the board flip way faster. On the other hand, if your board is flipping too much, try putting your index finger on the edge of the board that's furthest away from you. This is going to make the board flip slower and give you more control. One thing that really helped me when I was first learning this trick was before I pop the tail, I curve the board towards the direction that I'm about to 180 in. That way I get some momentum going and use that to get the full 180 rotation with my hand and wrist. This also helps because by turning in the direction we're about to spin, we don't actually have to do the full 180 and we can pop at a 45-degree angle. A good way to ease your way into doing a proper frontside flip is by putting your board out in front of you so that your tail is pointing towards you and you're riding away from your body. That way you don't have to turn your wrist as much. Once you get more comfortable doing frontside flips from this position, you can gradually start to turn your wrist more and more back to your regular ollie position. Another trick that can help you get the rotation down is to turn your fingers towards you. This is going to make it so you don't have to turn your wrist as much to do the full 180, and we have more of our index finger on the board to make contact with the grip tape, which will make the board flip. One thing to keep in mind is you don't have to completely turn your hand so your palm is facing away from you. What a lot of people do to make the rotation easier and make the landing look more stylish is keep their middle finger straight and bend their index finger. That way your index finger and middle finger are still landing in the same position on the board, but you can keep your hand and wrist turned at a 90-degree angle rather than twisting them the full 180 degrees. The key to this trick is to lead the rotation with your index finger to make sure the board follows your fingers in the air. As long as your front trucks are turning and doing the full rotation, the rest of your board will follow. Really focus on flicking back towards the tail with your index finger to guide the board so that your hand and board do the full 180. For some people, it can help to look at this trick from a different perspective. For example, you can think of it as a front 180 with a kick flip. For me personally, it really helped me to think of this trick as a hard flip with a body varial because I'm a lot better at hard flips than I am at kick flips. I also have a tutorial on how to do hard flips, so I highly recommend you check that out as well. But if you're still struggling with getting the rotation, try doing a frontside flip by breaking down the individual parts of the trick in different ways. Another example of this would be to do a kick flip and land on the nose so you can pivot the rest of the 180. Or you could do a kick flip and land at a 90-degree angle so you can power slide the rest of the 180. This will help you get used to the rotation, and you can eventually work your way up to rotating your hand and board in the air without having to slide your wheels on the ground. Step number 3, consistency. Frontside flips are one of those tricks that like to go all over the place. It took me a long time to be able to land them every try, so here's a few helpful tricks that I learned to pop them higher and land them more consistently. If you're finding that your frontside flips are over rotating and spinning more like a hard flip 180, try turning your fingers away from you. This is going to slow down the spin a lot and give you more control over the board. When you have your fingers straight on the board or turned towards you, the board naturally wants to spin more and it tends to not stay directly under your fingers. If your frontside flips keep over flipping like a frontside frontside double flip, try to not overcomplicate things and focus on doing a simple front 180 but have your fingers in the frontside flip position. That way you're not going to accidentally flick the board too hard with your index finger and you can focus on getting a solid pop of the board. Focusing on just doing a front 180 can also help if you're still over rotating the board. That way we're not forcing it to spin, and the way our fingers are positioned will naturally want to make the board spin towards you. Another trick that helped me to pop them higher is to flick your index finger more off the nose so that the board rotates vertically like a hard flip. This makes it a lot easier to catch the board in the air and can make them look a lot more stylish. And if you want to learn some other easy tricks, check out my other tutorials like my 1-hour video where I explain every basic fingerboarding trick in detail. Once you master all of those tricks, you'll be looking like a fingerboard pro in no time. And let me know if there's any other tricks you guys would like me to teach you in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more tutorials like this.